Well, with less than 3 weeks until Donald Trump takes office, there are lots of questions about what we will see in those early days. Incoming Press Secretary Sean Spicer says a lot is going to change from the get-go.
It's going to be not one big thing, it's going to be many big things. On day one, he's going to sign a series of executive orders to do two things. One is repeal a lot of the regulations and actions that have been taken by this administration over the last 8 years that have hampered both economic growth and job creation. And then secondly, do the same on a forward-thinking thing. He's going to start implementing things. He's going to bring a new brand to Washington. He's going to institute a lobbying ban. 5 years, it's very forward-thinking. What have we had in the past is people who've looked in the rearview mirror. This time we're thinking forward. If you want to serve in a Trump administration, you're going to serve this country, not yourself.
All right, so the president-elect has voiced displeasure with a lot of President Obama's recent actions, even involving Israel and Russia. Where does he begin? What do they do first?
Well, I'll give you an example of some of the thought process. I think we're looking through all of these different regulatory agencies. We've sent landing teams into these departments, and we're basically trying to figure out which regulations are the worst ones. And so we've asked people to rank the regulations from what are making the American people safe.
What are you finding out?
What is helping?
What's up at the top?
I think what we're finding out is that let's eliminate the worst 10%. So what's at the top for me, I'll speak specifically about the financial services industry, is the Dodd-Frank legislation
you would say that
has crushed the lending capacity for the community banks. And so if you understand the economy, where do we get our job growth and our wage growth? Is from the small businesses. Small businesses need a very vibrant community banking system. And so what we've done in order to make the world so safe, Sandra, is that we've stopped them from lending. And so we have to give them a little bit of room there to start lending again. So that means that some community bank equity holders may lose their money, but the systemic side of the banking system will be intact. And so we need to make the world safer. That's what the government's responsibility is, but not so safe that we get no growth, no wage growth, no economic opportunity for the middle and working class.
The cost of compliance for Dodd-Frank for these small banks so prohibitive that oftentimes they have to essentially sell themselves to these big banks who are emboldened by Dodd-Frank. Jeb Hensarling has a great piece of legislation, and I hope that through the president-elect he is encouraged to take it as far as he can, because that truly, it doesn't repeal Dodd-Frank completely, but it targets exactly what you're talking about. Those small banks, how much capital they have to have on hand, and how they have to comply with that behemoth bill we don't fully understand. It hasn't been fully implemented. It's so massive and confusing, and it is killing the economy.
One could make the argument that this conversation alone, and the fact that you're even looking at the regulations like that, has been boosting the stock market, the records that we have been seeing.
Yeah, exactly.
That being said, there's a lot of other focus that could possibly be on immigration, energy regulation. What do you expect the first few weeks of Trump's presidency?
Well, energy regulation, I think a lot of those are going to go pretty quick. He's been very open about that. I love that Rick Perry nomination to, would be, as a libertarian, I think it's a great idea to just nominate to people to head things that they've said should be eliminated.
Yes.
It's a great way to keep the government under control. But yeah, people love it,
The head of the EPA has been suing the EPA.
Yeah, exactly. The head of the EPA suing the EPA, another great pick in my opinion.
The head of HHS hates Obamacare, Betsy DeVos.
I could feel the Twitter haters coming out of the woodwork.
To see Donald Trump, keeping jobs here rather than getting too involved in private businesses, as I've also seen him do, keeping regulations down and the cost of doing business here lower so that people won't want to go other places.
But the irony, too, is for President Obama, for someone who has been so concerned about his legacy throughout his presidency and has done so much in the name of legacy, whether it's trying to release prisoners from Guantanamo Bay, the withdrawal of troops from Iraq, all of these things that he has done, a lot of it's going to be eradicated and reversed because it was done, so much was done through executive fiat, whether it's the executive actions on immigration, that can all be done by incoming President-elect Trump. And that's really what he ran on, was trying to roll back a lot of what President Obama's legacy was.
Which may be why he's thinking about, as a private citizen, speaking out more, which I think would be a mistake.
Staying in D.C. like a fifth-year senior.
Well, he's got in fairness to him, he has one of his children, I think, is finishing school there, so I do get it.
Yeah, but he's saying he's going to stick around. He's saying that.
Oh my God.
Let's hang on to that fifth grade senior point, because we're getting to that.